Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Disability Bites, a disability-themed podcast breaking down barriers one episode at a time. Hello Michael, how are you doing today?
Not bad, how are you, Libby?
I'm all right, yeah. I've just been trying to keep myself busy, which is actually not proving too difficult given how busy work has been and cleaning my house and everything else.
Yeah, yeah. What new things have you been up to, Libby, since lockdown? I know that we spoke a lot, but like just to give people a wee kind of insight into the day in the life of Libby. Not too much, but like yeah.
Well, it's not too exciting. I've been doing a lot of like Zumba classes.
Ah,
I'm trying to learn like salsa.
ah,
So I've been watching videos and trying to do that. I have been pressing flowers for like to make greetings cards.
right, okay, yeah.
Um, and I've been looking at lots of showers and bathrooms online because my shower is leaking and I'm pretty desperate at this point to get a new one. So, yeah, how about you?
Yeah, I've not read anything different. I suppose I was at my first ever virtual party the other night. Somebody was leaving in one of the jobs that I do, and yeah, it was a bit weird because everybody was sitting there with a wine and coke and all that, and but in separate houses. So I suppose that was good. So that was something a bit different that hopefully never experience again because, well, I wouldn't say never, but like it's nice to see people in person and stuff. And yeah, I've been using like Team and Zoom a lot as well to do. I'm doing a lot of different podcasts for um, different organisations that I work for normally. So that's been a bit different. But I mean, at least I get to speak to you, Robin, and other people and check in and see how they're getting on.
Yeah.
And I suppose, like, one of the things that we wanted to know is what new things have you tried since lockdown? So, if you've got any new things that you've tried that you've never done before, you can email us at disabilitybites@gmail.com and hopefully we'll read some out in the next podcast that we do.
Sounds good. I guess, do you want to kick us off with some disability news, Michael?
Yeah, well, there's been a lot happening on the news. Well, not a lot happening, but a few different issues that's came to light in the last couple of weeks, and this is fairly kind of a hot topic at the moment about when the governments in the UK does their news briefings, they always have like a signer behind them or whatever. And I don't know about you, Libby, but it was clear for me to see at the outset that the UK government does not have a signer.
No.
So the Scottish Government have a signer. They stand behind everybody that speaks, like Nicola Sturgeon or the CMO and stuff like that. And they stand 2 meters away from them so that they're keeping their distance. And when I was doing some research, like they have signers at the Northern Ireland briefing as well, and also the Wales government as well, and the Republic of Ireland. Obviously, that's not in the UK, but but the UK government does not have that. And I was reading this week, Libby, that the British Sign Language, like BSL, said the users have said that they've been discriminated against and they're taking people's kind of like human rights away in a way. So that they've got this, if I can find it here, they have got this kind of like campaign going on Twitter, yeah, and it's called hashtag where's the interpreter? so if you want to sign that campaign or whatever, it's on Twitter. But yeah, and they're taking legal action against the government as well. But it's pretty bad that's happening, because obviously this virus gets not discriminate. This
No.
virus hits anyone, and it doesn't matter if you're disabled or whatever. I can, yeah. So I don't know what you feel about that, but it's quite bad.
It is pretty bad, yeah. I think especially kind of the stark contrast between the UK government and the Scottish government briefings, given that the Scottish government have always had a signer there. And yeah, I had a look actually online, and apparently there was an act in 2015 which came out, which was like the BSL Scotland Act, which made it compulsory for the Scottish government to make their communication accessible. Which you can see is evidenced in their briefings. So yeah, it just seems a really big oversight to have made, which potentially risks people's lives if they can't get the advice translated.
Yeah.
Interpreted.
Yeah, I know it's quite bad how it's kind of happening. So that's I would say that's a bit of news, but that's like a big bit of news as well, and like it's going against people that can't like communicate and stuff. So yeah, so go on to Twitter and join the campaign or and stuff. But I'm sure there'll be more news about that coming out in the next couple of months. There'll be.
Definitely, yeah.
And yeah, so I've got a bit of more news. I feel like a new Riga here, Libby. But yeah, so like there's a new app out at the moment where it's a Scottish technology company called Neatbox. They're based in Edinburgh, but they supply apps for people with disabilities. In the past, that they fitted and instead of like pressing a traffic light. Once upon a time, when everybody was outside and pressing the lights, not now because everybody's in lockdown. They built this into the mobile phone, where they can actually press a mobile phone to actually assist the lights or whatever in a way. Also, at the moment, they're designing an app for people with disabilities to go into shops, because obviously shops are very, as I was saying to you earlier on, Libby, it's a very scary place at the moment. And people's up high dough and all that for better Scottish words. So they've actually designed this app that helps people keep a safe distance away, and the app is designed to tell the people when the shops are opening times and stuff. Like for key workers, they've introduced shopping hours. I think it's between 9 and 10 of the morning, and stuff for COVID-19 as well. So yeah, so I mean, if you want to go onto the website, as my bit of paper gets fell here, Libby. So sorry about that. My bit of paper gets fell actually when I was
The
about
best
to get.
newsreader, Michael.
So yeah, so if you want to go on to the website, it's www.neatbox.com, or you can follow them on Twitter as well, at Neatbox on Twitter. So yeah, but I think that's quite a good idea, Libby.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it kind of brings us on to talking about social distancing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And how this has actually been a really big issue for people with autism, people with intellectual learning disabilities, because the Scottish government recently changed their stay-at-home rules to say that people could go out more than once a day for daily exercise, if they did have autism or a learning disability, to kind of either fulfill like a medical need or just a need to help their mental health or support their condition by going out a bit more, going for a drive. And I think it hasn't really been clear, because although the government have said if you've got autism or a learning disability, you can go out for exercise, travel, or health reasons more than once a day, people are still being stopped on the street. And I've noticed quite a few news articles about this, where parents who are carers have maybe taken their children out, and the police have said, what you're doing in the car or what you're doing kind of out and about. And I guess it's an issue where the police probably need to be made a bit more aware. But we were discussing this at SCLD as well, because in Spain there's been quite a backlash, because they tried to give people bands to identify them if they had autism.
Yeah.
And obviously that's quite it's a human rights issue, because you can't really brand people in that way. It's a bit uncomfortable, especially given history and things like that. You don't want to mark people out when they go out in the street, but how do you make the general public and the police and the services aware that someone's out because they have a learning disability or they're autistic or they've got a medical need? It's a really tricky one.
Yeah, it's putting people in boxes again. Like, you don't want that and stuff. And the other bit of news, Libby, I don't know if you want me to go on and speak about this now or come back to this, about the new the BBC documentary that we spoke about before. And I think a lot of people have been having a say about it. And I know I kind of like tweeted about this as well. And so I was on BBC One, and you'll still get it on the iPlayer. And it is called BBC Scotland Disclosure, and it follows a lot of people with a disability, but also kind of elderly people as well. That's kind of like in social care. And the programme was about their care packages has been cut because of maybe self-directed support or other issues as well. And one particular thing it struck me was this girl was living independently in Clydebank, and the council wasn't giving her kind of like support. So they left it up to their mum and dad to give the girl support, but her mum and dad's case in Oban. So as you can imagine, Clydebank and Oban's like, I think it's like 2 hours away or 3 hours away. So that girl would have to give up her house in Clydebank and move in with her mum and dad in Oban. And the Saxon about this is, I don't know when that she'll move back into her own house in Clydebank, if you know what I mean. So she's up there at the moment, and but that's only kind of one person that they highlighted on the programme. The other one was this girl had a learning disability, and she was homeless, and she's staying in Edinburgh, but she had to come all the way through to Glasgow to get food. And I thought that's quite sad, because obviously you can get different charities in Edinburgh and providing food, but she has to come all the way to Glasgow.
That just seems crazy. I remember watching it back and just thinking, what? I mean, I think the presenter was shocked. She was just like, so you've come from Edinburgh. It just didn't, in times like this, when we're being told not to travel, it just seems like, why aren't there, why weren't there services in place to get somebody, who's perhaps more vulnerable as well, to get them food and to prevent them having to make a journey? Because I think she said she had diabetes as well. So she was like more at risk as well. But yeah, no, I mean, talking about the woman who had to move to Oban, I mean, Clydebank is not too far away from where I live, so yeah, I just think it's the equivalent of me having to move to Oban just to have my daily needs met. It's
yeah, exactly. It's just, yeah. So that was a wee kind of insight into what it's like, and
yeah.
But yeah, so
To have your independence taken away like that is...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Your whole life's kind of changed in a way, even though it is, but you know, especially in social care and stuff. But if you've got any views on that, we would love to get your feedback as well. Disabilitybites@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter as well at Bites Disability, and also we're now on Facebook.
We are.
Yeah, Disability Bites on Facebook as well.
Yes. Indeed.
So I think you were going to speak to us about a new project running by the Alliance Scotland, Libby.
I was. So many people will have seen the Humans of Scotland campaign, which the Alliance have been running for quite a while now. And what this is it's stories of people with disabilities or long-term conditions, and people who are carers and support workers, medical staff, social workers, and they put it all together in a book. And we were actually going to attend the launch, which sadly got cancelled due to the coronavirus lockdown. But what the Alliance have done at the moment is they've said, well, you know, we're all in this lockdown. How is it affecting people with long-term conditions and disabilities, and how is it affecting social workers and healthcare workers? So SCLD is going to be releasing stories of 3 people with a learning disability in a few weeks' time, during Scottish Learning Disability Week, which I'll tell you about later. But the Alliance are looking for stories. If you've got a long-term condition, if you've got a disability, or if you're a support worker or a healthcare worker, they want to know about your experience of lockdown, and whether the condition that you have is being adversely affected, or whether you're not seeing a difference, or just kind of whatever your experience is. And you can contact the Alliance via email at humans@alliance-scotland.org.uk if you want to share your story. And we'll put the details in this out on Twitter after the podcast. But our very own Michael McEwen here actually contributed to the Humans of Scotland project. So if you visit the Humans of Scotland, if you visit the Humans of Scotland page on the Alliance website, you can see Michael's story, and I believe it's probably on your Twitter and Facebook.
I think it is, yeah. I think somebody took it up there.
Yeah.
So
we'll tweet that out as well. Disability Bites.
Yeah, that's very good. I suppose everybody's got different experiences as well, so it's quite good that they've got that running. Now, Libby, I've been dying to know, and you can tell me now if you want, or else.
Never tell you.
Yeah, exactly. Learning Disability Week. It's a bit different this year.
It is. The main thing to say is that Scottish Learning Disability Week 2020 is from the 18th to the 24th of May, which is about 2 weeks away. And it is going ahead. So I know some people have been in touch and been like, what's happening? Is it still happening? It is, but it is going ahead online. So it will be, the theme's My Environment, My Place, My Planet. And it's about how we include people with learning disabilities in debates around the environment and climate change, but also decisions and action that takes place on a local level. Sadly, a lot of what we planned has had to be cancelled, as I'm sure a lot of other organisations and a lot of people are in the same position. But as I say, we've got a really full programme of events during that week online. And if you go to the SCLD website and you go to the Scottish Learning Disability Week page, you can keep up to date with all the latest news on this. You can also follow SCLD on Twitter at SCLD News, Facebook at Scott Commission, Instagram at SCLD News, and you can follow or search the hashtag LDWeekScot2020 to keep up to date. Before this all happened, we were doing some work with the Scottish Wildlife Trust and Scottish Badgers around they had lots of nature resources, and they have a Facebook page called Let's Notice Nature. And there's loads of cool resources on there, all based around your wildlife that you find in Scotland or wildlife you find in your garden. And we've been doing some work with them to make some more accessible resources for people with learning disabilities and for people with profound and multiple learning disabilities, which is often where it's harder to communicate, and people maybe aren't mobile or things like that. So we've been doing a bit of work with PAMIS Scotland, who work with and for people with profound and multiple learning disabilities. So we've come up with a sensory story, and another few resources which will be going up during Learning Disability Week across our channels, and also in the Let's Notice Nature group. So that'll be good. The other thing you can do is a bit like what we're doing now, Michael. So we have this thing called a community or a community party. And this was really, it really took off last year. Yeah, people all over Scotland were getting together and having tea parties to raise awareness of learning disability. So this year we're saying we're all spending half of our life on Teams and Zoom and House Party and all the rest of it. So why don't you get together and have we're calling it a make and take community, where you make something and then you show your people on the video call what you've made. And yeah, then you can just have a general chat and a cup of tea or whatever. So that's what we're doing. We've got a Facebook group which is helping people with learning disabilities and carers and parents keep in touch. And that's called SCLD Stay in Touch. If you search it on Facebook, you can request to join, but you have to be somebody either with a learning disability or someone who supports or works with people with learning disabilities. And we've been very busy actually at SCLD over the last couple of weeks. Probably my last bit of SCLD news is that the University of Glasgow, with colleagues from Lancaster Uni, Warwick Uni and Oxford Uni, have produced a really great series of guided self-help booklets for people with learning disabilities and people to support people with learning disabilities to do the booklets. They're all about coping with lockdown. So there's everything from stuff to help you sleep, how to keep active, how to cope with anxiety, things like that. Again, if you go to the SCLD website on the homepage, so www.scld.org.uk, the homepage, there's a button where you can go through to see the booklets, you can download them, and you can order print copies. So you can do that by emailing admin@scld.co.uk, or you can phone 0141 248 3733. We're only sending print copies within Scotland, but this has been a huge thing for us. We've had thousands of orders, and it's just nice to know that clearly people want this and it's helping people. So that's my SCLD update.
Good. Yeah, I'll try and think of something to make, but don't be too looking forward to this, because I'm not very good at making things.
Well, it can even be a plant that you've grown, or a chocolate crispy cake if you're not a keen baker. Or
Yeah, I don't suppose that will last that long enough, because if I make it and I've got to show you the day after, it might not still be here, if you know what I mean.
Well,
yeah. So, but also, yeah, I mean, this lockdown, Libby, is annoying a lot of people, but a lot of good stuff has been produced online. Like, like have a podcast. I mean, it's everybody's talking about our podcast. I don't know why. Um, but also there's good material on there, like for people. It goes to school, but the schools are short as well, and like learning disability week as well. And May's actually quite busy with the awareness weeks and awareness months as well. So I think like the last bit of news that I've got to tell you is about the mental health festival. And I'm involved in that every year as a volunteer. I have been involved in it for about 4 or 5 years now, where I go about doing, you'll be surprised to know, Libby, that I do podcasting. I don't know if you know that, and stuff. So I've done that, and I've wrote blogs about mental health issues as well. And that's online this year, because that starts on the 7th, what is this Wednesday, but if you're watching it in 2 weeks' time, it'll still go on. And I suppose the good news about the Mental Health Festival this year is it's meant to be on for a month, but they're actually extending the festival until June this year, because they realise that people's in lockdown and like isolation, and they want people to relax and don't think about lockdown in a kind of serious way, if that kind of makes sense. So it's extending the programme till June, and also they are going to during the festival, on like the first weekend, I think it is, Saturday and Sunday, they have a film festival, a mini film festival, and that's usually up at the CCA in Glasgow. But obviously, nobody's going anywhere, so they're putting the films online. And something a bit different this year is because if you wanted to see a film, Libby, and you were busy working that afternoon or whatever, well, you can go on and see it 2 days later, because they're introducing a kind of on-demand service like BBC iPlayer or other kind of iPlayers. So that's good. And it runs during Mental Health Week, which takes place between the 18th to the 24th of May. But as I said, the festival begins on the 7th of May, and it runs till the middle of June. And if you want more details about the festival, just head along to the website at mhfestival.com, and you can find all the programme information on there. And yeah, but I suppose everybody's taking advantage of online stuff now.
Yeah, I think it brings quite a lot of opportunities, doesn't it, as well as a lot of limitations. But the mental health festival is important because I think people are more aware of their mental health than ever before. I know I am, definitely, and I know even getting messages from friends and family, saying, oh, I'm not feeling too good today, or I'm struggling kind of to cope with how I'm feeling. And you think, yeah, it's just having to be in all the time, isn't it? Or if you're living alone, or
I think it's a new way of communicating, Libby, like this way, because I know of a lot of people and maybe SLD and different organisations that are not used to doing what we are doing at the moment, but they're finding a way around it, and they're adapting to life. I know it's not the answer, but it's at least get something. It's better than nothing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's difficult. It's difficult, and it's different for different people, isn't it? If it can be more difficult if you have a learning disability, maybe, and this is the first time you've been on your own for a period of time. Or I was watching the news about somebody who just come out of care and was a young care leaver and didn't have any family, and was just in her university room by herself. and although she didn't have a disability or a long-term condition, she was finding it mentally very tough. So
Yeah.
I think the important thing to say is that we're all the same, really, and we're in this together.
Yeah. And I suppose, like, if people want any help from SLD or whatever, you can email SLD or you can email Disability Debate to me. I don't know all the answers, but we can put you in touch with people that will, you know, like mental health charities or disability charities as well, like SLD, and there's a lot. There's a lot out there as well. So remember, we're looking for your new things that you're doing in lockdown that you've never done before. So you can email us, you can tweet us as well, and we're on Facebook. Basically, we're everywhere at the moment. Yeah. So thanks for joining us this month. We'll be back next month. Hopefully maybe semi out of lockdown. I'm not sure what's going to happen yet. I've not spoken to Nicola yet, so give her a wee call after this. But you'll be the first to know. And so thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, okay. Goodbye. Take
Bye,
care.
Libby.
You've been listening to episode 3 of Disability Bites with Michael McEwen and Libby Clement. We'll see you next time.